You are listening to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss our RC adventures.
Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss the ups and downs of the new RC Flyer. Join your hosts, Michael and Jay, as they take flight at the park. Now on with the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast. I'm Michael, and with me always is my good friend
Jay from the hills of Texas. How's that one?
Holy smokes, man. You've been practicing that
Yes,
one?
I have. You know, after my Alaska intro, I had to come up with something for Texas, and I couldn't think of anything, so I'm going to be working on that. That's going to be my new intro.
What, are you riding a horse around your neighborhood or something?
Well, I am wearing chaps,
hog calling?
so, you know, I'm getting into character.
Buttless chaps? That's funny. Well, today's Halloween. Imagine that. Are you dressing up as a cowboy?
Like I said, I'm wearing chaps.
You're just going in your pajamas, right?
That's it. Well, I'm just answering the door for all the kiddies when they come to trick or treat. I'm wearing chaps and cowboy boots.
Now you're in the same boat that I am. That we're kind of out in the country. Do you have kids that come by?
Well, yeah. Like I said, if I hear the doorbell ringing or somebody's outside my door, I have the 45 in my back. You know, in the back of my pants as I open the door. Hello. So
not sure if he looks older than 12.
Exactly.
Starting to worry.
You know, I put the 45 down and grab the candy. You know, so
yeah, no doubt. You want lead or you want candy? Nah, we actually live a little further out, so we don't really have too many trick or treaters. I think after dark they would have a hard time walking up my property line and knocking on the door without feeling like they were going to get in trouble.
Especially when you see the nice little the red dots
that
that come out and greet them. Is that what you're saying, Mike?
Something like that, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'd like to wish everybody a happy Halloween. If you're out trick-or-treating, this will come out Halloween morning, I think. But, stay safe out there. And if you've got kids and you're out in the neighborhoods, just be aware and be careful. Do you guys have a trunk or treat down there?
A trunk or treat?
Yeah, so up here in Phoenix, we have organizations, there's some local schools and churches and stuff. And so in order to keep the kids from running around the neighborhoods and, worried about people kidnapping or whatever, getting themselves into trouble, we have these groups that put on these trunk or treats. So they basically line all their cars up, and then they decorate their trunks. They open their trunks and decorate them. And then the kids can just go from, trunk to trunk to trunk, and they can gather their candy, and it gives the parents kind of a controlled environment, that kind of thing, in order to, watch their kids and let their kids kind of go through and do their thing. So it's kind of a neat idea for here in Phoenix. And, it seems to be catching on because as driving up to my house, I got to kind of drive through town. Right. I see a lot of those A-frame boards or whatever that are out that are like, oh, trunk or treat this, Saturday or whatever it is. And the kids can kind of come around. And I think several of them are pretty close. They can hit a couple of them, get a big bag of candy. So.
Well, I can't rightly say, since this is my first year here in Texas, as to what, what the folks do down here. Too bad AK Mike isn't on, because he could tell you, it's already started snowing there. So the kids will be wearing parkas, and they look like little,
everybody looks
they look like everybody's a snowman type of thing when they walk up to your house. So, the past couple of years, it's been very warm winter. So the kids, you can actually tell what costumes and things that they're wearing. So it's been very nice. But other winters, not winters, but other Halloweens that we've had up there, you just see a kid coming up in a big puffy coat, and you're just like, oh, you look so good. And you have no idea what they are. They have a Spider-Man.
What are you supposed to be?
Yeah, they have a Spider-Man.
An Alaska native.
Yeah, okay. They got a big hat on, boots.
I'm Kenny from South Park.
Exactly.
Can't you tell?
1,000 Kennys came to my door today.
Exactly. Well, hey, some good news. Our email lit up the day yesterday, I guess. Anyway, we had an episode a couple of podcasts ago with Don Daniels from Houston.
Yes, Don, the Chicken Man.
He
chicken rescuer.
he emailed me and said that, the Park Flyer staff, we kind of got together since he was talking about the Scouts and trying to get them back in business. And we had actually sent him some Park Flyers in the mail. And so they arrived.
Oh, good.
And I don't know if you remember during the podcast where you and I were discussing that we send each other stuff and our wives are looking at it going, what'd you order now?
Course,
kind
yes.
of thing. And so in his, when we were shooting emails back and forth about, hey, I appreciate the stuff. And that's the first thing he said was, I got these kits in the mail, and my wife was really upset that I had ordered stuff, and I was trying to convince her that I didn't order anything. It just came to me. I said, yeah, welcome to the club.
Excellent.
So we've kind of set him off now to where when stuff comes in, I'm sure his wife's going to look at him and just shake her head. It's not from me. So,
I didn't order
luckily,
it.
There was on the order, it said Park Flyer Podcast, so hopefully he can show that to her. Or if she's listening to the podcast, he can take this to her and say, yes, our organization did send him some.
Yes, wink,
Park
wink,
Flyers
nudge,
for
nudge.
Scouts.
Don did not tell me not to say this.
That's right. So his wife's going to be like, yeah, you paid those two guys to go out there and say they didn't buy this stuff. So anyway, if Don, if you're listening tonight, we love to help out. We appreciate you being on the podcast. Hopefully you'll have a great time with those kits that we sent down. They're fabulous kits. They're really fun.
The Scouts should have a lot of fun with those.
We sent him a couple.
Nice, tough models.
Yeah, so he's going to put them together and then hopefully get with the Scouts and be able to teach them how to do some of the flying. So I think he's still looking for radios, though. If you're listening and you have a spare radio or you're trying to get rid of a DX, 5 or 4, 6, something, you can send us an email or email him direct. So, but we appreciate Don and all the work that he's doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tonight's episode is kind of on hobby rooms. We just to let you know, I got evicted.
Wee. So the law got smacked down in your household.
The sheriff showed up. The house sheriff showed up, and basically our my kid he and his wife were coming in, and so I like most men, work in the spare bedroom because nobody's ever in there, but my wife decides, hey, this is our son's room, and him and his wife are coming, and we need him a place to stay, and so I need to, clean the room up, get it all organized, and your stuff is in the way. So, I literally got physically evicted from my room. She kind of stood over me while I, gathered my things and moved them into the.
So pray tell, where
room,
did you move?
It's not
all those few items. Where did you move them?
Well, let's just say that I set up a 10-foot table on the one side and a 5 or 4-foot table on the other side, and proceeded over the next about hour and a half to empty out the entire spare bedroom.
The closets too?
All my little hidey holes, little hiding places.
Oh, man.
And put all of my stuff in this middle room on this table. And she comes around the corner and says, wow, that is a lot of stuff. And I looked at her. I said, "Yeah, it's had a very good hiding place in the spare bedroom because I just have a little table that has some parts on it, and that's where I normally work.
It's just like a little desk. It's not that much.
Yeah, it's just a little computer desk that I do work, but I have it pretty well organized most of the time. I mean, sometimes I'll throw a bunch of stuff on there. It looks like a big pile of nothing, but in my own little way, I know what's on the table and I can find things, and it's kind of in organized piles, I guess is the best way I
like
can
that term, organized piles.
Yeah, but now it's all kind of on the table, and so the Container Store manager got all happy when he saw me coming because he knew I was about.
I'm going to make my bonuses this month. Yeah.
Christmas is coming and we got a bonus. So yeah, I went to the Container Store here in Phoenix, and then I got a bunch of those big containers that have the 40 compartments, and I sat down, and it was a Saturday, I think, or last Friday or whenever it was. And so I sat down and I just organized all of my little, parts. And so I have a bunch of little clear plastic 40, I guess they're 40 compartment containers. And, you just pick it up and you look at it and you can see all your parts inside. And I've got blind nuts and screws and washers, and they're all organized in sizes. And so it makes it a lot easier, and I've kind of stacked them. And then, I have a big cutting mat that's sitting there now. So I have kind of organized it a little bit better. It is a little bit more room than just the desk that I had, but it afforded me the opportunity to realize that there's a lot of stuff I have that needs a home, basically.
What do you mean by it needs a home?
Well, like I have torque wrench or the Torx. What do you call those? The
screwdrivers?
The little, like screwdrivers and the torque wrenches, the little low-C, hex nut.
Not socket drivers.
Yes, that's it. Nut drivers, socket drivers. I've got a bunch of little Allen wrenches for little, things from servo screws to, wheel nuts and that kind of thing. And so a lot of these are in this, just kind of in this box, and I just kind of throw them in there. And then when I need them, I kind of dig them out. Well, I used to have them in this little drawer, and then when I needed them, I'd pull out the box and dig through it, and then I'd shove it all back in the drawer. And now I don't have that drawer, so now I have to just, it's sitting on this desk, and I thought, well, there's got to be a better way to organize this stuff. So I started, searching. So to Google's we go.
To the Googles.
And jumped on there to the Googles. And luckily for us, the internet's a wonderful thing. And so I did some research with just organizing your tools for, RC and that kind of thing. And I happened upon a website called Lane's Planes. I don't know. Have you ever heard of Lane's Planes?
No, I have not. I'm not familiar with that.
Lane's Planes, obviously is an RC guy, and he obviously had the same problem I did. Not the eviction part, but the where he got evicted out of his spare hobby
notice
room.
On my door here?
Right, exactly. The sheriff's waiting on you. No, he actually has a laser, and he does some laser cutting. And so he's actually created a little workstation. It's just a little, probably 2 foot by 6 inches or so, and it's a work stand, and it's laser cut, and you can put your glues in it, and then it's got little holes for the glues, and then it's got little holes for all your Allen wrenches, and it's got holes for your screwdrivers and your scissors and your hobby knives and all that stuff. And so it gets it up off of the table from rolling around, and it actually puts a little organization to it. So I ordered one, and it came in the other day, and I'm really super impressed. It's a really good product. It's very super thick. Most laser cut stuff comes in that really thin, not really balsa, but thin plywood stuff. This is pretty thick. I don't know if it's a half, maybe a 1/4 inch, maybe.
Okay.
And it's all, dovetailed. It's got a nice little laser, cut on it, and everything fits. It's pretty amazing. He's got several different kinds. He's got one that is a smaller version that just sits on the desk. He's got one that's a taller version. He's got one that's got drawers.
Has an actual drawer that you pull out?
Yeah, it's got like two little drawers on the side.
Okay, neat.
And anyway, I guess largely to the fact that I've been up, most of the day and emptying out my room and spending all that time organizing, it was probably several hours into the wee morning, and I just sat down and I looked at it all, and I go, ooh, I want the one with the drawers. So I clicked on the buy button, and I don't know what I was thinking, but the buy button is on the bottom, not on the top of the drawer. So the one I ordered actually showed up, and it wasn't the one with the drawers. I had gone back and looked, and sure enough, I had ordered the wrong one. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I won't order the one with the drawers. So
okay, so this wasn't at like 2 a.m, and you weren't wearing your glasses to see what was on the screen, obviously.
Yeah, it was that time of evening, and I don't know if I had my glasses on or not, but
I keep telling you.
I think it was just my confusion looking at the
morning.
Website and thinking, I'll just order this.
Mike. Nothing.
No, I hear you. It's the old man syndrome kind of thing, but. So as a result, I have a new hobby room. The little table is on the side. I've used to put all my battery charging stuff on it, so it's all organized now. And there's actually a mat there, so now I can actually build an airplane on the little table. It's the same, it's my 48-inch Edge 540 needs a few repairs, and before I even get started, we had some issues with it when we went to go maiden it. And so it's sitting on that table, and it'll sit just perfect. So it the wings off of it, it just sits on there. And then basically the other table has my soldering station on one end, and then all my tools and stuff on the other. So it's working out real well. She seems to be happy because it definitely cleans up the spare bedroom, and now that room can sit empty, waiting for our guests to arrive at some point.
No, nobody's going to come see you. That's what's going to happen now.
Yeah. Well, not probably. I think
come over.
My parents coming in for Thanksgiving or whatever, or maybe the kids will come in. But yeah, it's now her actual room. It's dedicated. The closet's empty. It's not full of RC stuff in there.
Wow.
Although I was nice enough, she didn't look under the bed, so I skated on all the stuff under the bed that I didn't have to move.
Well, come to think of it, you should have about three planes worth of boxes, that unfinished planes probably are under there, right?
Oh yeah, they're all in my little room now too. They're sitting underneath the table, all stacked up under there. So
okay.
Yeah, it didn't. Those had to move too because they were in the way.
So you didn't have any problems. Yeah, I mean, because that's also, wasn't that her office as well, or a pseudo office, the room that you took over, or
it was her pseudo office. I don't know if she's gonna put a little her little laptop, because she just works on a laptop, so she can put that pretty much anywhere, and she might be able to use that other little desk in the spare bedroom, but I don't know. I think she'll be happier with me in there. She was nice enough. We were digging through my kids' stuff, and we found it's kind of a boom box. It's not really a boom box. It's a Bluetooth speaker, like a Bluetooth speaker, but it's big. It's like half the size of my desk. Anyway, it's it plays music, but I can just do it right from my phone. So my kid comes in, and I'm soldering, some of my new connectors. And so I have my soldering goggles on, so it makes my eyeballs look really big. And I'm jamming with the windows open, because it's nice and cool here in Phoenix now, and in the evenings. And so I've got a breeze blowing through and the fan going, and I've got this music cranked up because, of course I live out here in the country, so I can crank it up as loud as I want. And next thing I know, I hear people laughing, and it's my wife and my daughter-in-law and my son are in there, and he's got his phone up, and he's sending something out on, what is it, Snapchat or something, that says Dad's Man Cave or something. It's all live, so it's got me sitting in there with the big goggles as I'm looking over. My eyeballs are big like a frog, and the music's blaring, and I've got this soldering pin in my hand and smoke coming up from whatever battery or whatever it was I was soldering. So they got a good kick out of it, but so far I've enjoyed it.
I'm glad that you've
it's been a good
had
move.
A successful transition. And actually, you gave me a couple of good ideas, because I'm kind of going through something very similar myself.
Yeah, that I heard you're setting up your hobby room as well, and this is a good time, for Halloween. You can talk about all the scary things that go on in your hobby room.
Well, luckily I did. Well, we have constables here, so I didn't have the sheriff come through.
There you go.
But I didn't have the constable say anything to me. It actually is because, like you said, it's getting cool. Like in where you are, it's getting cool here.
Right.
And all of a sudden, it got cool, and I got active. And I walked into, like I've been telling everybody since we've come down here, everything's been in boxes. It's just been too hot. We always were coming up with an excuse not to do anything. But now that it's gotten cooler, I couldn't take it any longer. I walked into the room, and I looked, and I said, because I was having the same problem you were, I didn't exactly have a workbench or anything to work off of. I was either working off of a little coffee table, and I think you glued yourself to that table when you were here last.
I did once or twice,
and I didn't have the hobby bed. That's what else I was using. I have in one of the spare bedrooms, I was using one of the beds as one of my hobby tables, and it's just it's overflowing with stuff, as you can probably see in the background here.
Right.
So finally I said, okay, we had a room that we were going to make into a hobby / sharing room for my wife and I, for both our hobbies. And I just got tired of it. So I pulled all our moving boxes out of there, and I grabbed her and I said, okay, let's sit down and talk about what we want to do. We got our ideas together, and we ran off to Home Depot, and we got a bunch of cabinets. They have unfinished cabinets there that are very reasonable. They range from $80 to about $150, depending on what you want. But basically we got cabinets for in the kitchen, lower cabinets, and maybe about 6 of them, various things. I wanted drawers on mine. She didn't want drawers on hers. And looking around the house, we were able to find 1 or 2 countertops that my mom just had laying around of just various stuff. And Becky was like, ooh, I want those. And I'm like, great. I'm just going to grab some MDF 3/4 inch tops and cut them and slap them on top of these cabinets. And that's what I want. And that's kind of like where we are and how it started off. Now we're kind of in the planning phase. This didn't work out phase. I don't know how to use a saw phase. So it's been kind of fun, a little disastrous.
Right. Well, so it's working out. I mean, I think the last we talked to you, were getting pretty close. You put the tops on now, right?
Right. So I've been able to cut the tops. I've kind of like putting a model together. So first I laid out the cabinets, said, okay, this is about where I want them. And they have cardboard on the bottom of them, so they're easy to slide around the room. So it's kind of like we put the cabinets. I go, how do you like this? And I have my wife with me, and she goes, oh, I like that. And I'm like, great. Walk away for 5 minutes, come back. She goes, yeah, I don't like this. And I'm like, oh, okay, I went to get a soda. I came back and you did now I have to rearrange things. So right. We had that was a little bit of one of those frustrating times between her and I because, thought we had it, but hey, this is dry fitting 101. So we laid out the cabinets, sure, how we all like them. Then after we did that, we had to decide on how wide we could make the tables. So this was wonderful because it was like, do we want to make super wide cabinets or do we want to make normal size, or tabletop, I should say, or cabinet top? Do we want to make them really wide or do we want to make them normal sized or do we want to have a 3-inch overhang or 5-inch overhang? So it sounds kind of silly, but it was kind of exciting because just like you were kind of getting your room together, it's like, oh, I'm making this monumental, RC room for myself. And maybe I do want to have a 3 or 5-inch overhang. That way I can put clamps and attachments to it and whatever, things I can't even think of right now. And that's kind of like where I'm at. Sense. I'm even though we're kind of dry fitting the room together and I have cut the countertops. I didn't go too crazy with them. We've just dry fitted everything. So it looks like the room's kind of finished, but it's not. So we're still deciding on how we want to finish the tops of these countertops or workbenches, I should say they are. Do we want to just, slap white paint on them? Do we want to, put marbling effects? What do we want to do with it? So that's where we're kind of going. So right now, all I'm doing is treating the wood so that it's finished, treating it so that we could just use it. And if we want to repaint it or do something later on, we can do it later on. Right now, I just want to get them functional. So that's basically where we're at.
Well, it's looking good. The photos that you sent me so far, it looks really good. And you got to get done, right? Because
yes, it's funny how my life is just, I've never had a deadline for like 8 months I've been here. And all of a sudden I have a deadline. So it seems, Halloween's here and by gosh, in another 10 days, I better get all this stuff done because I have company coming. So
you do have company
exactly.
coming. How exciting is that?
Exactly. And so my company is very demanding. So I have to have rooms for plane building. I have to have a field done. I got all sorts of things I got to get done in the next 10 days. So I'm kind of under the pressure every day. I have a task that I have to accomplish.
So
every day.
You were mowing the field though too, right? Did you get the field mowed?
It's about 2/3 done.
And
then I stopped. Well, because this project came up. So the field's on hold, but this weekend I'm going to get a new mower. So the mower, I'm probably going to pick that up Saturday or Sunday, and then I'll go back and I can finish up the field. And luckily, I called up the owner of the field and told him that I had a few problems. There was a couple of scrub brush trees that were down at one end of the field, and I called him up and I asked if I could go ahead and cut them down, and he was like, "Go at it, buddy. You've been a good steward so far, and if you want to make improvements to the field, just let me know. No problem. Cut down the trees, drag them off. If you want to cut any more, have at it." So he's been great to us. So I'm really appreciative of Mr. Wynn helping us out at that field. I'm really loving it.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed. Of course, I was part of that conversation and got the text that he had sent you, and I was really amazed. I mean, he has really bent over backwards and given you guys a kind of run of the place, and it was nice of him to tell you were good stewards and watching over, and I was pretty impressed.
Yeah, I'm very impressed, considering I just kind of moseyed on down here and kind of heard about this guy, and and it just goes to show making a quick phone call or an appearance and meeting somebody can make all the difference. For gaining access flying places. It's all in how you approach it and how professional you are, and then your actions. Because once we met him, we basically said, "Hey, this is what we're going to do," and then we did it, and then we've been taking care of the field ever since. And he hasn't gotten any complaints. We haven't been having wild parties out there or anything like that.
You didn't burn the place down?
Yeah, not yet. So it's been we'll see when you get down here, but
So that is Jay's guest is me. I'm headed down to Texas again for this. I guess the first week in November, right? A couple of days, 10 days or so. And as a result, we are looking to go fly some airplanes because the last time I was down there, we built the Stuka, right?
Built the Stuka. I haven't made it yet, so we'll get the maiden it then.
So we're waiting on that. The P-51 is ready to go.
Ready to go
that
too.
One needs to be flown. There's a couple other airplanes I think you pulled out of the box and got ready, so we'll be able to fly some of those. And as far as I know, I think a new one showed up too.
A new one did show up. Kind of surprised the heck out of me, considering that a few days prior, all the accessories to the plane showed up at my house, and I was wondering, why am I getting these nose cones and propellers and some weird servos? Why is this stuff coming to my? Because at first I'm thinking, did I order this, or and then I look and see that your name's on it. I'm like, oh, he must have been up 2:00 in the morning, trying to order some things. And I know how you click on things on PayPal. I have your name, as alternate for ordering things too, and I just figured you just had mine on there from before and click and had it sent to my house by accident. Until a coffin-sized box showed up, and the UPS man said, "Hey, do you fly RC planes?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, I think this box is for you." And he's starting to struggle with the box, and I'm like, "Holy crap! That's not like a little, 12 by 24-inch box." It quite literally was a 6-foot box, a coffin. It was huge.
Right. Well, I was pretty excited. It was trying to figure out what to get Jay for Christmas, and we've been looking around at different airplanes, and he's got a set of 6-inch wheels that we've been talking about for the last almost 2 years, and we were trying to figure out what type of airplane to put these big wheels on. And he's from Alaska, and I was trying to figure out what would be a good addition for this field that Jay has down there. And it wasn't until I visited the field and I saw how much room there was. It's flying off of grass. There's a lake over by where he's living. We went and checked that out, and there's just a lot of options. And so I wound up, after ordering my 3D Hobby Shop Edge, we had looked at this Turbo Beaver, and so I'd made the decision that I think if the thing ever came back in stock, I would get the Legacy Turbo Beaver for Jay for Christmas. So I ordered all the parts and the extra stuff that kind of comes with it. And normally, like when they shipped my airplane, they shipped it right with the parts inside the box. But in this particular case, they sent the parts out first in a separate little bag. So needless to say, he sends me this message that says, "Hey, I got this spinner and I got this, prop and all this kind of stuff in there. And I'm not really sure, what happened or how I got this." And so I had to play the game of, basically saying that I sent it to him by accident because the airplane hadn't showed up yet. And I didn't think anything else of it, but like 2 days later, the servos that's supposed to come with the airplane showed up too. So now he's kind of like, "Look at all these servos." And I was like, "Yeah, it's part of the same package." And anyway, it was kind of funny because I'm trying to put off the fact that, I screwed it up and just hold on to them because I'm coming down there anyway. And then the big box shows up. So
Well, like I said, it was you had me with the first 2 days with the two items, 2 groups of small boxes that showed up. You had me because I honestly just sloughed it off because I knew you just had a new plane and you were ordering all sorts of stuff like you normally do, all accessories, or you want to trade out servos, you want to trade out whatever. And I just didn't even think about it until, like I said, the minute the guy goes, "You fly RC," and I go, "Yeah," and then it clicked, and I said, "I know exactly." Since you on one of the boxes it said where it came from, I instantly knew what was going on.
Right, because it came from Extreme Flight, which is where my Edge came from, and so the boxes were kind of, he knew that because the box said Extreme Flight that I just ordered something from there, and it kind of was easy to play that whole I made a mistake.
And the 6 servos. Since there were 6 servos, I pretty much had a good guess as to what it was, and then of course I saw the size. That was the big thing that shocked me because I thought it was going to be the smaller one. And then all of a sudden I see it was the big one. And I was like, holy cow. Ching, ching, ching. Now I'm spending money. I was going to go help those orphans. Oh, well. I was going to donate to their college fund and their meals for the next couple of years, but that's out the window, folks.
Yeah, sure you were. Well, it's been exciting. I've been trying to keep it secret because I've been waiting for this thing. It's been months and months and months of waiting for this basically the Turbo Beaver to come back in stock. And when it finally came in stock, it's been out one day. Because it came in stock for like one day, and I was out, and I saw it on my phone, and I'm like, oh man, I got to get home to order this. By the time I sat down on my desktop to put the order in, it was already out of stock again. So there was another 3 or 4 or 5 weeks that I had to wait in order for it to come in, and then kind of came in. I said, all right, well, I'm going down there anyway. And I thought I ordered it all together, and they split it up a little bit. So I'll make sure next time to send it all in one box, not 3 separate boxes, please. Put it all in the same and ship it once. It was a fun exercise because
it was fun. But the only problem, as you could say, getting such a wonderful gift. The only problem with that was when I got it, I had just started the project on the room.
Right.
So I was getting cabinets. I was getting everything. I'm making my list of organization for doing that project. This thing shows up early in the morning, nice and early. Nobody was home. My mom was out. My wife was out. Everybody's gone. It's just me and the dog. And this thing shows up. And then instantly, I called you up or you called me, and I'm talking on the phone. I'm pacing around the house looking at the coffin. Standing up in the room, and I'm pacing around the house because I know,
that's awesome.
I was just about to go off and, and build the pyramids. And then all of a sudden, all this fun stuff shows up. And I'm like, ooh, I want to get on the internet. Ooh, I want to open up the box and just, start feeling it and touching it. And I just know my productivity level is about to crash if I touch that box. So I had it bad for that whole day. It was rough, buddy. Let me just tell you. It took me until the evening that I finally opened up the box and I was able to touch it and ooh and ah. And, luckily it's still in plastic because I was drooling on it. So thank you very much. It was very hard that day to get things done because I kept drifting off, thinking about things I want to do. It was awful.
Oh yeah, you were the whole squirrel every time you turn around.
Oh yeah, it was definitely a squirrel. Yeah, and I tightened the nut to make sure this cabinet fits. Squirrel. Oh man, I could get lights for this thing. Ooh, what wheels should I use? Ooh.
Exactly.
Then like I said, later that night I ran off and I spent almost an hour researching the best wheels. Silly things like that.
Right.
So yeah, I got it bad.
No, we all do. I mean, I've kind of been the same way. Anytime something new comes in, I literally dropped everything for this yak that came in, and we finally got it all built up. We're just waiting for it to maiden that. We've got a lot of stuff to maiden here.
We do.
I've got like 3 or 4 airplanes to maiden on my side. You've got several on yours. Alaska Mike didn't join us tonight. He had some other obligations.
Yeah, he had 1 or 2 that he maidened. So he's been he's the high stick for the week.
That's true.
He had the most stick time, I think, when we were talking about the TS 100s for the soldering iron, and he's got the most stick time flying. He's been flying more than you or I have.
That's
true. In Alaska. That's amazing.
It is amazing. And it's snowing up there already. So
now it is, yeah.
Speaking of the TS-100, I have used mine now. So I've been trying to catch up stick time wise.
So let's have a post follow-up.
Yeah, I really like it. It is very small and very quick to heat up. So those things.
So is it too small for your gorilla-like fingers? I mean, I mean honestly. Like I was saying to you before, to me it reminds me of holding a hobby knife. So
it does. It really does, soldering, which is very strange because I'm used to having this big, massive, hot piece of metal in my hand, and this thing is it's literally like a magic marker. It's no bigger than a Sharpie pen.
It is. The word dainty comes to mind.
What is it?
It's dainty. It's very dainty.
It is a little dainty.
Like you could snap it between your fingers, type of thing.
Yeah, I don't think it's that dainty. But
it's not that fragile. Like I'm just saying it's just so small and delicate looking. It doesn't think. You think of your you think of your soldering iron as this big heavy tool.
True.
I don't know.
True.
It's
well, I have to say that so I got a couple of new ESCs in the mail. I was going to say escapes, but we've already tried to do that, didn't we? Got a couple of new escapes. The electronic speed controllers, which is what we call them, escapes for short. But anyway, I got a couple in the mail, and I was going to go ahead and put the bullet connectors on the end of them. So I put the bullet connectors in my nifty little soldering jig, and I stuck that TS-100 on there, and I changed over to the really fine. What is that? The TS1 or whatever?
The TSI tip.
TSI tip. So it's really, really thin, and it's got a real long point to it, and it fits right in the little hole with the barrel connector. So I was standing there holding it. In the meantime, I was kind of trying to feed some solder in there. While this thing heated up so quickly, it drained it filled, not drained, but it filled the entire barrel full of solder. I mean, literally the whole barrel. And so now I'm looking at all the solder's nice and shiny, and so I just took this little wire that I had, and I just shoved it down into the barrel connector, and of course it sploosh. Oh yeah, it just absorbed it all, and a second and a half later it was full. Well, so I did all three of them, and it's literally like if you filled up a glass of water and then stuck a popsicle stick in it and then put it in the freezer. Because now the popsicle stick is the tiniest thing in there, and there's more water than there is popsicle stick. And now I want you to pull the popsicle stick out.
Nope.
It ain't going to come out. And I wanted one of the wires. I realized that I needed to desolder one of the wires. And so I was trying to desolder it. There's no way. There was so much solder in there. Because when I stuck it in there, it was just like an instant melt, just like a big lava pot filled with stuff. So that was the downside for me, is that once I got, it was great to get the, solder in there and the wire, but I eventually had to just cut the thing off because I couldn't get the
couldn't get hot enough
to heat up that much mass of solder.
It came down to the tip, like what type of tip you had for doing that. So the TSI was too pointy and too small.
The TSI was way too small. I mean, it would put it, if I put it in the hole in the side of the barrel connector, it would kind of melt the solder right there in the hole, but it wouldn't. It wasn't able to heat up the entire.
For the reverse, if you wanted to take it out or you wanted to deconstruct.
No, I would have had to have something that basically touched the whole side of the barrel connector and heated it up fast enough to melt all the stuff on the inside. And it was easier just to cut the wire off.
Wow.
Than to do all that.
So it soldered it too well. Usually we don't have that. That's not usually one of our complaints. Gosh darn it, we soldered it too well.
Yes, exactly. But now I've done some batteries with it, and I've done some ESCs, and I've done a couple of adapters. So I really like it. It heats up incredibly fast, and it does melt the solder very, very quickly. And I now know what you were talking about when you said you could form the solder. You turn the temperature down, you can move the solder around, and basically it gets kind of this. it doesn't like liquefy. It just kind of gets into this softer state, and you just push it over to one side, heat up the iron a little more, a couple more degrees, and now it's liquefied again.
Yeah.
So it is very strange to be able to have such a precise temperature. I mean, 2 degrees will either melt or not melt the solder. It's amazing to me.
Well, it's nice to have that you like this new tool, because, like I said, it just totally changed my whole concept of soldering. Just by, it's not like the things they did to it were revolutionary, right? You know,
no, they just made it.
But just to combine them all, just makes your soldering that much more precise and enjoyable. I think is the word. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how are you doing? Were you doing yours off your power supply, or are you doing it off the batteries? How are you? What was powering it?
Because of where I'm sitting in the table, the other table on the other side of me, it makes like a 90 degree, like a T, and or an L, I guess is a better way to put it. It makes an L. So the short part of the L is where the other table is, and that's where my power supply and all my batteries are. And then the long table, the long part of the L is where I'm soldering at the end of that. So I was just using the 4-cell battery. And so
okay.
I'm messing around with the 4-cell battery, and I'm soldering, and I kind of started thinking to myself, well, how do I know what the battery voltage is? I mean, because the soldering iron doesn't really tell you what the voltage. I mean, it might. I haven't got that far. But I was just about to say, did you select on the iron itself that you were using a 4-cell battery? Mm-hmm. I did not do that yet. No, I just plugged it in.
Because that's part of that new firmware update that we were talking about in the beginning of last podcast. You can either say DC power supply, or you could say, which type of battery you're using, a 6-cell, 5-cell, 4-cell, 3-cell. And I think not that the iron will beep or buzz at you or anything, but I think when it gets down to a low cell count, it'll start flashing. The display will start flashing to let you know that it's getting low for a 4-cell, or which cell count you selected. So
that is correct, and then it shuts the iron off.
Right.
Don't ask me how I know that,
but because of that, you said that you came up with a way to help fix that, or to alert you. Because you said you didn't know how much juice you were using in your battery, right?
Yeah. So what I did is I have the. I think you can get them from Hobby King, but they're basically a battery checker, right? That just checks all the voltage. And this one here is you can plug your battery in and discharge it or balance it, and then you can see all the voltages in all of the cells. Well, I just plugged it into the charging port, or actually the balance port. So now I actually have this screen. It's about the size of a credit card, but it's a screen, and it shows all the cell counts in there. So now I can literally watch the voltage as it's decreasing as I'm soldering. And so whenever it got down to 3.7 volts or whatever, it basically shut the iron off.
What size battery were you using?
2200 milliamp.
Okay. Yeah. So how long were you able to solder? Did it last? Did you? Because I haven't used batteries at all yet, so I've just been using my power supply, DC power supply. So all I've been using, my laptop power supply that I have. So I haven't finagled with using batteries at all. So I'm really curious.
I will tell you that there were several days that I was soldering with the same battery. Mm-hmm. But if you leave it on and you solder at a higher temperature, obviously, I went up to the max because I was soldering a big 10 gauge wire, and I had the other tip on it. Not the T1 or whatever it is. So when I had the bigger tip on it, it didn't last as long because it was trying to maintain that 850 degrees or 450 or whatever it is. And so I could literally watch it, as I was soldering and it was at the highest level, I could watch the, voltage go down, the milliamps kind of just trickle down. But then when I set the pen down, or I set the soldering iron down, and it went into that sleeper mode or the whatever, I don't know. It's not really
it goes down to it doesn't turn off. It goes down to a low state or wait mode. Yeah. So it keeps instead of having to go from 0 to 850, it goes down to like 300 or whatever you set.
Right.
And it rates at that temperature. So then it's not
and
struggling.
So when it's in that mode, it doesn't
up.
eat the battery as much because it's not trying to, utilize all that.
Right.
So I probably got about 2 days of soldering, but it wasn't like I was, basically soldering the whole time. It was kind of, solder a little bit and then clean all the stuff up and get the new one and hook it all up. And then, but the soldering iron was on, the whole time I was doing all that. It just was at a lower power setting. But it was quite impressive. I've really been impressed with it so far. And, for the technology is great because everything is changing, especially in this industry. We're moving towards, some really phenomenal things that are coming out that are just making our lives that much easier. And this is one of them. So if you haven't gotten the TS1 or the TS100, haven't looked into it, please go out there and take a look. You can go onto the website and there's a link or two, of that particular one, that particular soldering iron. So,
well, I definitely think this is the TS100 is going to make our list for Christmas.
Oh yeah, it'll be on the Christmas episode for sure.
Well, fantastic, man. I'm glad you enjoyed that little gift and it's helping you out a lot. So since you have it's kind of weird. We all got three different irons and we have 3 different setups for them. So that's been kind of nice to kind of be able to talk about how we're using them and how we like them. So
yeah, that's true. And so I don't know if I have as much stick time on it as Mike does, but I have been soldering and I do like the way it solders. It's very, very easy to do. So yeah, I'm looking forward to some more opportunities to solder. Speaking of new products, though, I took my Edge 540 out there, and there was some issues with the motor escape combo, and so I wound up not really mating it, and I brought it back to the shop. So when I started looking into it, I honestly started realizing that there were probably some things that I needed to replace. I've had the Hitec servos. I had the 65 MGs in there, and I noticed that when I moved the actual controls that these servos would start to chatter. And I don't know if it's because, they're old or they've just been, in a couple of crashes or they just, the new radio that I have versus the voltage that I'm using. But I started looking into maybe because they're 10 years old and I have a new airplane, rather than just changing everything over and taking it out of my old SHP and putting them in this one, maybe I should look at something a little different. So I happened across the new Hitec multiplex came out with the HS-5070MH.
Ooh, that's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. It is an ultra torque Metal Gear feather servo. It drops into the same hole. I know, right? It drops into the same hole as the HS-65s.
Right.
Almost identical. Except it's a high torque. This thing is incredible. It's almost 53 ounces of torque at 7.4 volts.
Wow.
I mean, this thing has instantaneous. It's digital. It's programmable. It's amazing some of the stuff that you can do this. The programming of functions of this thing, you can do endpoint adjustments. The direction of the servo you can change. You can put a fail-safe in the servo so that if it loses its signal, it will go to, whatever the fail-safe
the servo?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's got a speed adjustment so that you can, if you're putting it on a gear, you can slow it down inside the new Hitec programming interface. It's got a data, so you can download the data on your, on the servo from its performance.
Wait. Data on the servo? Yeah. What are you? That sounds like you're racing or something. Like you're an Indy 500 car, and they have the computers hooked up to it, and you can download all your data. So you can download the data on your. Wow, that's going over the top for me. Considering with the old 9-gram, HXT 900 plastic geared servos to now this. Wow, that's incredible, Mike.
It is amazing, and I was floored. The more research I did on them, the more I was just like, I just liked them because they had the higher torque. Because I was looking for something that was a little more 3D-ish, and looking to replace just 2 of the servos on my on the Edge.
And that's how it started.
And it is, but then I realized that the torque is only at 7.4 volts. So obviously, if I split analog and digital servos, I can only use 6.0 or 6.2, And there I'm not getting the full 53 ounces of torque.
Yeah, and it's not to say that you can't have digital and analog servos together, but once again you're handicapping yourself, for having digital servos when you have an analog setup.
Right. No, I agree.
So.
And this thing truly is it's a 3-pole metal brushed neodymium motor. Go figure that. It's got the magnets in it.
So basically you're saying that this servo has a brushless motor in it.
That is correct.
That's what you're saying.
Yep. And it's all metal.
Snots. That's cool.
I know, right? It's a programmable digital circuit. It is very amazing. It weighs 14 grams.
What?
Yeah. It is really, I'll put a link on our site. I've been super impressed with it, and being a park flyer and always using these digital mini servos from the 9 gram to the 12 gram servos, which go in pretty much everything. This thing has just blown the doors off. I cannot believe this product that they've come out, and it's fairly new. As a matter of fact, I started looking for them and realized that some of the shops don't even have them in stock yet.
So you have to have a programmer with them. Did you get that?
So I did not get the programmer. They do have a universal program interface. It is a computer program, and then you basically hook your USB port into this programming interface. And then it's all software on the computer. So when you plug in your servo, it brings up, basically registers the servo, which you can name, by the way. You can name the servo.
Oh my gosh, this is Charlie.
Right? Exactly. So you name the servo, and then it has endpoint adjustments, the directions. It has all these little sliders, and you slide everything around. The fail-safe is amazing because you can get it to go what they call fail-safe limp, which means basically if it loses, it just goes neutral. And then, or you can do an actual, fail-safe degree. So let's say that it lost signal. It would immediately go to 22 degrees, and it would stay at 20 degrees nose up.
Right.
And that's where it, and when it cuts out, that's where it's at. So whatever it has in it, that's where it does. So this, interface, you kind of go in there, and then you click the save button, and it resets all the stuff, and you send it all to that particular servo. So it is amazing.
Wow, buddy!
And it has a deadband adjustment too. So if you're using 2 servos on the same control surface, you can actually take the deadband out of one so that they're not fighting each other. It's crazy.
It's
awesome.
Crazy. I'm almost speechless because I will say, with all the technology is good, but also technology is scary, right? Because just the stuff you just quickly described in this past 10 minutes, I'm sitting here going, wow, depending on the radio that you have, sometimes it's kind of daunting just to get it to, go into some sort of programming mode, or you want to do some, you want to do something different with it. And, just the difficulty it takes to do that sometimes is daunting. Now you're telling me you have this servo, which sounds to me like I almost have to go to ground school for a day and bring my books. And just to go over and learn all the neat, cool stuff it could do.
Well, the good news is the interface is very user friendly. So I did, I was on there looking at it and kind of playing around with it, and basically it's just sliders. It comes up as a big screen for the whole servo, so everything you need is on that one screen. And then if you want to, change the endpoint so you don't want it to go so far to the left or so far to the right, you could just change the slider. And because it's programmed, it's plugged in right to the interface, you can exercise it right there and see. So it'll move it while you're, that's what the interface does basically. Because you plug a battery into the interface to power the servo. Now, here's the downside that I see. Now I have to program my servos, or I can program my servos. I can program my ESC, my electronic speed controller. If I have a BEC, I can program the battery eliminating circuit unit that I have, and I can program my receiver because I'm starting to use some of these ASX3 the Spectrum versions, and you do that with your iPad. You plug it in there and you can change all the stuff in your receiver, and you can program my DX18 radio. So look at how many items that all program? What if one program, my radio has one thing in it and the servo has another thing? I can see that there could be some conflict there.
Right. And you forgot too that you were just talking about you ordered some new escapes, and I've been, since my coffin showed up, I was looking at different escapes and doing some research, and I saw that some Castle Creation products.
Yes. Yeah.
They also do telemetry. So depending on your radio system, it will integrate with that radio system and provide telemetry as well. So you can get all this other information from your escape as well into this.
Now, it's my understanding that because I have some Castle Creations, and as I understand it, you can only download that telemetry.
Right.
So you have to come back and plug it into the computer to read it. It won't send it to your radio.
That depends on the model of the ESC. Some do. They have data loggers built into them. The one I'm talking about actually hooks into your receiver. When you hook it into your receiver, and depending on the receiver that you have, it'll actually get on your S bus and give you telemetry data on RPMs, temperature, the whole 9 yards. That will report back to your radio. And then depending on your radio will log that information.
Well, that's pretty impressive, actually. So,
yeah.
I've been really happy with this. The whole catch-all to the whole thing is this servo is $35.
Well, right now, you know what I mean?
Right, because it's new.
Now,
but what I'm saying is,
think about when we first came in and some of the things that we're talking about, like flight control boards or things like gyros. They would be hundreds of dollars, and now you can get a receiver that has a gyro in it. From anywhere from $15 to $100, depending on what you want it. How exotic it is and what you want it to do. I mean, it's gotten incredibly cheap. So I see that servo.
I wasn't saying that it was expensive. I was just saying that some of the capabilities that this airplane has, that this servo has as a feather, servo.
Oh, gotcha.
Are items that are in the more expensive. Hitec has some servos that are almost $200.
Right.
They're titanium and they're fully programmable. This thing has pretty much fully programmable. It's got a lot of program functions that some of their higher end servos have, and it's $35. It's not $5, which is what you used to.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of these, but I'm saying I don't mind paying the $35 for a programmable digital servo that's metal gear, if I'm able to go through and do all this information to it. It's amazing. If you flew a helicopter, holy smokes, this thing would be awesome.
Mm-hmm. Well, like you said, though, in another 2 or 3 years, if that, just imagine now. Because like I said, the Futaba, Spectrum, they all talk about their S-Bus, setups and stuff, but I think only Futaba is really gotten into using it. And that S-Bus can do a lot of stuff as opposed to having tons of, servo wires going back and forth. You could just have one wire hooking up all your servos, and the same thing, you can name them. They could report back all this data, and connect up your whole radio and just have a few cables running through throughout your whole model. It's going to be awesome in the future here. Of course, you might need a pit crew to go with you to analyze all the data.
You really will. You'll need somebody, a big trailer and a pit crew. Yeah, I think the S-Bus, I saw late. There was an article I think I was reading in one of the RC magazines that said that their S-Bus, they ran 42 servos. Mm-hmm. With an S-Bus. That's pretty amazing. And all on like a 6-channel radio or something ridiculous. It was
because think about it. You're talking about basically when we started everything analog servos. Now you're talking about digital servos. Now they've gotten really really inexpensive digital servos, but because they're digital, think about the communication lines or your watching television, over cable. The reason you're able to get cable television and your modem, not modem, nobody uses modems anyway, or the modem over your cable to watch, getting your high speed data all over through one little cable is because they can compress and do all this stuff digitally. And now they're putting that technology to, your digital servos and how they manage their information. It's going to be incredible. We're going to, like I said, you're going to be able to have a radio that could be 100 channels, literally.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I don't know what you use those 100 channels for.
100 channels for.
But you're going to be able
Oreo
to
cookies. Actually, that's what we got to do is get one of those little bombers. We can drop candy to all the trick-or-treaters tonight.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I was ready to say, so do you have any models that could be done up for trick-or-treating, or if you had any neighborhood kids or anything? Do you have anything set up like that?
I don't. I don't even have anything that flies at night, which needs to change.
Oh, that's right. You don't.
So, well, that hopefully that'll change by the new year, because I know that the Electric Festival here in Arizona, when they hold it, usually has a night fly. And for the last 2 or 3 years that you and I have gone, we've missed it because
we haven't gone.
Didn't have anything to fly. So I think this year coming up for 2018, we may have to get ourselves some little foam airplane and put some LED lights on it, go out there and participate, because I hear it's a hoot and those guys have a good time out there.
It is. Well, that's right. You did get to come up to Alaska, and I took you out flying at 1:00 in the morning.
That is true. I flew your Fun Cub, I think, with lights.
Yeah, I embedded lights all in throughout the plane. And we got out when it was just getting dusk, and Mike was pretty perturbed that it was 1:00 in the morning, getting dusk at 1:00 in the morning.
I know, right?
We had a good time flying it.
Oh, I had a blast. I mean, it was hard to get me to go home after that. I mean, I think I was wanting to charge the battery off of the car battery, just so it could stay out there. But it was amazing. I paid for it the next day getting up early, but it's the first time I'd ever flown at night, and it's just different. But it was really, really cool. Those LEDs put out a lot of light, and it was easy to kind of maintain directional control. And then nowadays they have the X braces that go on the ends of the wings that actually provide their own light. It's like a big sphere of light around the whole airplane. And it's all
it's some cool stuff that you're able to do. But the weird, I guess the part that I love about RC flying, whether you're flying just planes, helicopters, then you decide you want to fly off of water, and then it's it's still flying, but all of a sudden now it's totally different. It's just a new element and it makes it new again. And flying at night is kind of like the same thing. You're still flying, but the whole thing, you're not seeing the whole plane, and you're having to do your orientation. And to me, it's not so much, that wasn't so hard. It was just that you're at your flying field and what's out there, and then it gets dark, and then you're just like, I think there's a tree over there, but was it 50 yards away, or was it 100 yards away, or am I standing right next to it? And that was the part to me that was fun.
Well, and it's kind of cool. I like watching the videos of those guys with their huge balsa airplanes that are flying around. It's amazing to watch them, fly in the middle of the night, and it's a pitch black around them, and then just their airplane running around. So it's definitely, I'm looking forward to that for the E-festivals.
Well, I tell you what, depending on where we do this at, I'm sure we're going to test it out before we go to the E-fest. You will get a crowd of people. Unfortunately, some of that crowd might be the police, because people freak out when they see this thing flying around.
It's a UFO.
I mean,
I weird flying around my house.
Oh yeah, I think I got my most approaches from people when I flew it at night, and then all of a sudden people are like driving over and stopping and like, is that a plane? Are you flying that plane? Do you see that? That's the other thing. Do you see that? Yeah, it's kind of weird. I think it's coming closer.
What? I'd just be like, see what? What are you talking about?
Oh my gosh. It's funny, bud.
Yeah, that is pretty funny. Well, let's see. We got new equipment and new hobby rooms put together, at least part of it. You're still working on yours, but
right.
I don't know. It's getting time to go out there and answer some trick-or-treating, I think.
I think so. So I guess I got to get my 45. Where did I put that thing?
Yeah. Well, we missed Alaska Mike tonight. Unfortunately, he had some other obligations, we said earlier, but we'll try to get him back on as a regular host for us. And let's see, we just year's coming up to close. We have a couple holiday sessions coming around. Thanksgiving, Christmas is just around the corner, and then we're off into our third season. And man, it's hard to believe it's gone by so fast.
Yeah, it's been, screaming by.
Yeah. I was talking to the guys at the park the other day and told them that we had almost 20 21 episodes this year. They were like, what? No way. I was like, yeah, you sound like you're a little behind listening to the podcast. You didn't know there was 21 of them.
Wow, wow, wow.
I know, right? So, well, we appreciate you listening to us anyway, wherever you are in the world. We
sure
are
do.
Able to see that, guys are from all over, China, Japan, Argentina, Canada, a lot of European countries. So we appreciate your patronage. We appreciate you listening to us on Stitcher Radio or iTunes or Google Play or all the, the many podcast players that are out there that we participate in. So we do appreciate that. Take the opportunity to drop us a email at parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com. Tell us what you think, if you have any suggestions or comments. And man, it's been a great run so far. We've really enjoyed it, and we still got a lot to learn and a lot more to kind of share. So we definitely appreciate everybody.
Well, it's been spooktacular, Mike.
Spooktacular it is.
Yes,
that is
very.
Correct. Yes. I guess we'll have to go out there and find Dracula and throw some Milky Ways at him. I don't know why I said that. It just
I
came
don't
out.
know either. All right, folks.
Well, we appreciate you listening to the Park Flyer Podcast from Arizona Studios. I'm Michael.
And from the hills of Texas, I'm Jay.
We hope you have a great night, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
See ya.
You have been listening to the Park Flyer Podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your next visit. Please give our show a star rating and review, and feel free to email us your questions, topics, or suggestions to parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com.
It's now the Monster Mash. Now everything's cool. Drax a part of the